Good evening, you're watching Estuary News. I'm Hugh Riches. In the headlines tonight, 2 men remain in hospital following a serious collision in Grimsby, the new King Edward Square in Hull, and a local MP calls for fair nursery funding in East Yorkshire. And I'm joined on the sofa tonight by Ted Stanley and Heather Buckby telling me about a prestigious literary competition. But first, some news. Police are appealing for witnesses after 2 men were seriously injured in a collision in Grimsby. The incident happened at around 5:45 yesterday morning at the junction of Clee Road and Humberston Road, when the driver of a black BMW collided with a telegraph pole and fled the scene. Fred brings us this report.
Residents are calling for improved safety features for a roundabout in Grimsby after a crash has left a man in hospital. The incident happened at Love Lane Corner in the early hours of yesterday morning at the roundabout which sits between Clee Road and Humberston Road. Police are currently looking for the driver of the black BMW 335 which is involved in the crash after the driver fled the scene. A 24-year-old man, understood to have been in the back seat of the vehicle at the time of the crash, has been arrested by police. Prior to the driver's escape, fire crews spent around 45 minutes using their cutting gear to release the occupants from the crashed car. A 21-year-old passenger who was sitting in the front seat of the car has sustained life-threatening injuries and is receiving treatment at Hull Royal Infirmary. The arrested man was taken to Diana, Princess of Wales Hospital where he was treated for serious leg injuries and has now been bailed pending further inquiries. Humberside Police have asked that if anyone has any information relating to the incident that they should call Humberside Police on 101. Fred McNamara, Estuary News.
4 youths have been arrested in connection with reports of a violent disturbance in Hull. 4 boys, 2 aged 13 and 2 aged 14, have been arrested and remain in police custody. Police were called to Harpham Grove at around 8:50 p.m. on Friday following reports that 3 residents had been assaulted and that around 20 youths were behaving in a disorderly manner. 2 men, aged 20 and 48, were treated at Hull Royal Infirmary and have been discharged. Damage was also caused to 4 properties. A spokesperson for Humberside Police said they're working closely with Hull City Council and they'll be seeking to remove those found to be involved in antisocial behaviour from the area. Patrols have been stepped up. A ward has been closed at Scunthorpe Hospital today following an outbreak of diarrhoea and vomiting. Ward 24 has been fully closed to new admissions and transfers. Patients from the ward will not be discharged to nursing or residential homes while they remain an infection risk. The hospital says it's reviewing the situation daily and regular and frequent disinfection is being carried out on the ward to contain the outbreak. New images of the future King Edward Square in Hull have been revealed. The open space at the junction where King Edward Street and Jamison Street meet is thought to be the city centre's first new public square in over 100 years. It'll be used for street performances and as a place for people to relax and enjoy the city's new public realm. Fresh tree lines and street furniture along with new lighting will complete the look. The current streets will be pedestrianised and incorporated into the square to create a much larger and more open space than before. The work on the square will continue as part of the current public realm works and will be completed by March. On tonight's Hot Topic, I'll be speaking to Chris Haskins, Lord Haskins, Chair of the Humber Local Enterprise Partnership. Here's a preview of what he has to say.
There's the opportunity to export. There's also the opportunity for import substitution. And the most interesting side of that is, for example, we are here in the Humber buying quite a lot of stuff in for renewable energy, equipment coming in from elsewhere. Well, that'll be more expensive. And therefore, there may be a greater incentive for companies to set up business here to build those sizable piece of equipment here rather than bring them in from elsewhere in Europe.
And you can catch that episode in full tonight at 8 o'clock here on Estuary TV. 1 in 4 homes across Yorkshire and the Humber are not up to scratch, according to the charity Shelter. 27% of people in the region live in homes which fail to meet the living home standard, designed to be the housing equivalent of the living wage. It's measured by 5 criteria based on what matters most to the public: affordability, decent conditions, stability, space, and the neighbourhood. A home fails to meet the standard if one or more of those criteria is not fulfilled. The research reveals that most homes fall below the standard as a result of high housing costs, with 12% in Yorkshire and the Humber living in homes which fail on affordability. Now it's time for Reflections, which this week comes courtesy of the Reverend Becky Lumley from St Mary's Church in Beverley.
Being thankful is so very important, and we've been thinking at church a little bit about being thankful for the things that God has given us. Every evening my little boy says his thank yous. They're kind of his prayers, his way of saying thank you for the day that it's been. Depending on how tired he is, depends on how long the thank yous go on. Thank you God for mummy and daddy and all our friends and all our family. Thank you God for the stick insect that I saw at school today, the bee that passed me, and you can imagine the list goes on and on and on if he's determined to stay up a little bit longer. And sometimes as a parent that can be really infuriating, but actually isn't it lovely that somebody can be so thankful for the things that they see round about them? So often we think about the things that we haven't got, the things that we're missing out on, the things that we wished were different. But being thankful for the things that we have reminds us how good the world is around us, whether it be families and friends, whether it be neighbours, whether it be creation and the wonder and beauty and splendour of the world round about us, whether it be the tiny little bee, as my little boy likes to celebrate, or whether it be the great grandeur of the mountains and the sea. And being thankful doesn't just change others. You know, when we say thank you to somebody who takes our rubbish away for us, or somebody who passes us on the street, or even somebody we work with regularly. But it also changes us. It gives us a different attitude, a way of living that is so much more positive. In the Bible, there's a story about 10 lepers suffering from a terrible disease. All of them were healed by Jesus, but only one of them remembered to go back and say thank you. It was a stark reminder of the fact that so often we miss out on the good things that God has given us. We fail to recognise them by failing to say thank you. So perhaps this week we might all consider what we're thankful for.
Now it's set to become one of the most popular and prestigious awards in the literary calendar. The University Centre Grimsby's International Literary Prize is awarded for the best short story on a chosen theme. And to tell me how people can get involved, I'm joined now by Ted Stanley and Heather Buckby. Welcome, both of you. First of all, let's talk about this prize. Also, let's talk about Hammond House, which is the publishing house that you've set up also to support writing, well, not just local, but in the world. But first of all, Heather, tell me a little bit about the prize. For a start, when's the closing date for entries?
Closing date is the 31st of October, which leaves us 14 days until the deadline. And the first prize is £500 for the winner. 500
of your English pounds, £100 for second prize, and 50 for the third.
Yes.
And what sort of work should people be submitting?
The theme of the competition is conflict, so that basically covers any story, either external or internal conflict. And
that's a very wide. I mean, all stories have conflict, don't they, in one way or another. So you've left the writers very much. It's up to their own initiative and their own choice on what to do. And it's short stories. Tell me, how short is a short story?
We've set it as 2,000 to 4,000 words, which gives people enough to work around and to adjust the story to fit for the competition.
And Ted, you're both experienced writers, but you've been involved in this prize as well. What sort of things do you think the judges are looking for?
I wish I knew, then I could enter and win. They have put on the website their ideas of what they're looking for. They're all different, so I think you should just write your own story and hope for the best.
Well, may I submit a few things? I might be looking for at least coherent English expressed that sentences put together.
Well, I think they assume that goes without saying.
Do they? Oh, if only that were true.
Yeah.
Can I just give the web address that people should be sending these stories to? www.hammondhousepublishing.com. Is that right?
That's right.
Hammond House Publishing is all one word. So between 2,400 words long on the subject of conflict. Send your story into that. I hope to win 500 quid. We'll come back in a moment to talk about the publishing. Join me after the break when Fred will bring us a roundup of all the latest sporting action, and I'll be talking in more detail to Ted and Heather. Welcome back. You're watching Estuary News. Still to come tonight, Fred brings us a roundup of all the latest sporting action and more from Ted and Heather on how you can get involved in a literary competition. The Member of Parliament for Beverley and Holderness, Graham Stewart, is launching a fair nursery funding campaign. It'll allow people in the East Riding to enjoy the full benefits of the government's policy offering 30 hours a week free childcare to working parents from next September. The headline rate childcare providers will receive under the government scheme is £4.71 per hour, but the East Riding will receive the 11th lowest rate under the formula, which is £4.03 per hour. Once deductions are made, this could amount to £3.55, with local childcare providers warning Mr Stewart that this may not be enough for them to participate. Mr Stewart will lobby ministers to introduce a floor rate below which no local authority area can fall. This is intended to help ensure that childcare providers in the East Riding will offer the extra places needed. Internationally acclaimed contemporary dance company Phoenix Dance Theatre will turn 35 years old in a special anniversary tour at the Spa in Bridlington in November. From small beginnings in inner-city Leeds, the company has grown to be one of the UK's leading dance troupes. The celebratory show will present a triple bill of intense and funny pieces, including 2 brand new commissions that celebrate the diversity and collaboration for which the company has become internationally known. The performance comprises work by world-famous Dutch-Israeli choreographer Itzik Gilali and New Adventures choreographer award winner Caroline Finn, as well as Kate Flatt's Undivided Love, commemorating the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death. It'll be held at the Spa in Bridlington on the 9th of November at 7:30. Still with me in the studio, Ted Stanley and Heather Bookby, telling me about the short story competition and the publishing house. Just a little bit more on the short story competition. 500 quid's a nice first prize to get, but you get really much more than that just by entering, don't you, Ted?
You do. I think the most interesting part of the competition is that the first 6 entries, the top 6 entries that are chosen by the judges, have worldwide publication of their stories in an anthology that's going to be published in December this year. And by worldwide publication, that will be in Barnes & Noble bookshops, on Amazon, and someone can go into a bookshop in Canada and order their book and it will be printed and delivered. So
well, of course, you've
completely-
mentioned one computer book distribution service. There are others available, but that does make everything international. And talking of the internationalism, you've had entries. It's the University Centre Grimsby, but entries from all over the world.
Five continents recently. Yeah, from
5 continents have offered submissions.
Yes.
Well, what sort of countries? I mean, presumably they're English-speaking countries, are they, where people are writing these works?
Yes.
Well, not all of them. We've had entries from Greece and Spain, but also from America, Australia, Canada, and even Africa.
Wonderful. So it is truly global. The publication, of course, is slightly more difficult than just winning a prize, but you've made that much easier by creating Hammond House. What's the idea behind that, and how did it start, Ted?
The idea behind Hammond House came from a group of students at the University Centre Grimsby, which Heather and I are both part of. And we looked at publishing and how to get our work published, and realised that the traditional route of going through an agent and a publisher was not only difficult, but very time-consuming and could take a long time. And the other route of self-publishing was quite a lonely existence, and also tended to get confused by vanity publishing, although there are some very successful self-publishers. So we thought, well, why not form our own publishing company, which is exactly what we did. So Hammond House Publishing is formed by a group of students at the University Centre.
Now, a publishing house usually provides to its authors and indeed to its customers an editorial security, as it were. I mean, works will be edited, but also distribution, production of hardback volumes when they were still, well, you know, maybe I'm being old-fashioned, and marketing. Can Hammond House do all that for its authors?
We offer those services, and we also like to have our members offer services to our audience or customers or other authors around, so everybody gets to experience different aspects
of the publishing process.
Yeah.
And do you produce hard copy books? Is it all just electronic books? What do I buy from Hammond House?
Well, every member of Hammond House gets the opportunity to publish their work on the Hammond House website. Every member has an author's page, and on that page they have their profile, they can talk about themselves and their work, but they can also publish their work as well. But going on from there, we are hoping to traditionally publish work, and the first one is the anthology that's been published in December. But bear in mind that the organisation was only formed 4 months ago, right? So we're still working towards the things that we want to achieve.
Well, that's already a great deal more efficient than most book publishers, I think, in my experience. I notice that you use the word members there. There's a sort of element of being a collective, and that has the advantage that you can all, you know, put your minds together and check each other's work and criticise each other's work, I suppose, and of course encourage each other. You look dubious about the encouragement, Heather.
Yes.
You're all horrible and catty to each other.
Well, we offer feedback, and we have members groups and blogs and on the social media, so that we can back and forth communicate with each other and know what's going on around in the writers' community, and give each other feedback on our stories and learn or help each other at the same time.
Anybody can submit a work to Hammond House, and
yes, it's open to everybody.
It's not exclusive, and it's open to everybody.
Providing they're members.
But you can join easily enough, I take it. And you can go to Hammond House and buy things off the website there as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant. The first one will be the anthology of writers for this competition. You'll come back to Estuary TV and make the announcement with us?
We will.
Of the winner? Yes. Thank you very much. Brilliant. Brilliant to see you both. Now, here's Fred with all the sports news.
Woeful. That's how one of the Hull City players described Saturday's 6-1 drubbing at the hands of Bournemouth. Tom Huddleston took to Twitter following the game to say that they had to go back to the drawing board after defeat on the south coast. Junior Stanislas scored 2 of the Cherries' goals, leading newly appointed head coach Mike Phelan to say that his players need to have a long, hard look at themselves. A deflected Ryan Mason goal was the only high point for the Tigers. A Paddy Madden double saw Scunthorpe United extend their lead at the top of the League One. The Iron fought from a goal behind to go 4 points clear of Bradford City, thanks to the super sub who changed the game when he came on with fellow forward Kevin Van Veen. They're now preparing to visit Ultimate Athletic tomorrow evening. Grimsby Town had an equally fruitful afternoon. James Berrett scored the only goal of the game as they won 1-0 at Cambridge United. The Mariners are now back in the playoffs, sitting 6th in League 2. North Ferriby United manager Steve Howsham says he's threatened his players that he'll bring in reinforcements if they don't improve. The Villagers took a 45-second lead in the FA Cup final qualifying round game against Macclesfield Town on Saturday, only to be beaten 4-1. And Howsham says he has the option to make signings if he decides he needs to.
We're working on a tight budget. We're well under that budget. I threatened them before about bringing players in, and it could well happen. We'll have to wait and see. But like I say, some of the performances there, they need to be looking over the shoulders, because, like I say, I knew when I first took the job, you know, it's going to be a difficult job. But I'm man enough, I'm brave enough to give it a fight. There's probably managers before me who turned it down and thought, no, I can't get involved in that. I'm willing to give it a go, but I need the players to do that as well.
On to tennis, and Tickton's Kyle Edmund has moved up to a career-high world ranking today following the release of the latest ATP rankings. He's now up to 43 in the world after quarter-final defeat in Beijing a fortnight ago to Andy Murray and a last 32 loss to Stan Wawrinka in Shanghai last week. Rugby Union now, and Hull Iowans won 32-29 against Esher from Surrey in National League 1, while Scunthorpe beat Oatley 23-14. Elsewhere, in the Yorkshire Shield, Hull Indians made it through to the quarter-finals, where Middlesbrough await them. Andy Vernon opened the scoring with this try before Ollie Dinnan ran over 3 times to complete his hat-trick, the best of which was this one, which was his first of the afternoon. And that's all for the sport.
Thanks, Fred. Just time to remind you, or to tell you, that if anybody would like to sponsor next year's annual literary prize, this year sponsored by the University Centre in Grimsby, they won't be sponsoring it next year. Anybody who wants to sponsor it, please get in touch with Hammond House Publishing through that website, www.hammondhousepublishing.com. That would be much appreciated in the literary world. That's it for tonight. If you have a news story, then please visit our Facebook or Twitter pages, email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 0147231 5553. Write to us, Estuary TV, Nuns Corner, Grimsby, DN34 5BQ. Until tomorrow, from all of us here on the team, good evening.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Good evening and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. This evening, scattered showers becoming confined to the Pennines, but more persistent and locally heavy rain spreading from the west later in the evening, becoming windy at times, especially across the hills, minimum temperatures of 6 degrees. Tomorrow, early rain soon clearing, then sunny intervals, then the odd shower. This more widespread and locally heavy in the afternoon, feeling noticeably cooler in the brisk west or northwest wind, maximum temperatures of 12 degrees.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Good evening, you're watching Estuary News. I'm Hugh Riches. In the headlines tonight, a woman is attacked in Grimsby, a disturbance in a Cleethorpes pub, and raising awareness of modern slavery in Hull. And in National Adoption Week, I'll be talking to Michaela Tatarin and Kennedy Hannon, and later in the programme, Lawrence Brown will be here to talk about the Great British High Street. Police are appealing for witnesses after a woman was assaulted in Grimsby this morning. It happened at around 6 a.m. when the 44-year-old victim was grabbed from behind by a man as she walked to work along a cut through off Cleethorpes Road. She was not seriously hurt, but she did suffer bruising to her arm. The intentions of the man are not known, but the woman managed to struggle free. Anyone with information is asked to call Humberside Police on 101. An MEP for Yorkshire and the Humber, Mike Hookham, has accused Stephen Wolfe of betraying UKIP after he resigned from the party yesterday. This follows an altercation the pair had last week at the European Parliament, resulting in Mr Wolfe, UKIP MEP for North West England, being admitted to hospital. Wolfe was the favourite to lead the party after the departure of Diane James, but Mr Hookham says his political career was finished when he decided to be disloyal to the UKIP party and the UKIP membership and to jump ship to the Tory party. It's Anti-Slavery Day today, an annual national day to raise awareness of modern slavery. An event was held in Hull yesterday to raise public awareness of slavery and what's being done to tackle it across the Humber. We start by talking to Alan Doherty from Modern Slavery Consultants.
A lot of people will have a belief that slavery is confined to perhaps a sex trade or certain backstreet things, but actually modern slavery can be found in big organisations in their supply chains, both in the UK and abroad. So we're going to be giving some details of a case that we dealt with last year where 30 odd people were rescued from premises, and those premises were manufacturing goods for some of the big high-tail retailers.
Obviously slavery is illegal, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't still exist. So it's a huge issue in every country and every place in the UK. So in the UK last year, 3,266 people were identified as potential slaves, but those are only the people that were identified. So the actual figures we're looking at are between 10 and 13,000 people in the UK are currently in slavery. So it's not a small issue, and it is prevalent all across the country.
Most victims of modern slavery are vulnerable people. The traffickers target them because of the vulnerability. The other thing is that most victims of trafficking are controlled in some way, and a lot of people assume that victims of slavery are kept locked behind closed doors and not allowed out. And that's not true in all cases. In some cases, the control is very subtle, and it can involve blackmail or threats against family members. But in most cases, there is some form of control, whether that's removal of travel documents and passports, not access to your own bank account. But the full range of control measures are there, and in some cases people are physically beaten, tortured, or even in some cases very badly assaulted.
We can't just rest on the fact that we've got Wilberforce's past here. I think we're quite encouraged by having Wilberforce's name in Hull that we need to do something and be the forerunners if we can. We've recently established the Humber Modern Slavery Partnership, which brings together all the statutory and non-statutory agencies across the whole of Humberside, which have some kind of commitment to ending slavery. So we're obviously trying to make inroads at the moment.
Design plans for the £2 million Lincolnshire Lakes development are currently on show to residents and potential residents in Scunthorpe. This is the first of 5 lakes to be built as part of the development, and a planning application for the construction is to be submitted after the event. £2 million have been secured from Greater Lincolnshire Local Enterprise Partnership to build the first lake. The £1.2 billion project will build more than 6,000 homes by 2028, creating 6 villages in waterside settings, along with sporting and leisure facilities and shopping centres. The consultation will give residents a chance to view the plans and discuss them with the project team. It's been held in Asda Car Park on Scotter Road until 7 p.m. this evening. A 20-year-old man has been attacked in Hull. This incident happened at around 10:25 yesterday morning in Hull's Pearson Park, when the victim was approached by an unknown man who threatened him and demanded money. Fearing for his safety, the victim handed over the cash. The suspect is described as white, aged between 35 and 40, with a slim build and black-grey hair. He was wearing a dark jacket with grey on the shoulders and dark cargo trousers at the time of the attack. 2 men have been taken to hospital in the early hours of this morning following reports of a violent disturbance in the beer garden of a Cleethorpes pub. Officers were called to the Grant Street venue at around 12:55 when 15 people were said to have been involved in the incident. 2 men aged 32 and 37 are currently being treated at Diana, Princess of Wales Hospital. Now, this week is National Adoption Week, which aims to find families for some of the most vulnerable children across the country. I'm joined now by Michaela Tatarin, Senior Adoption Social Worker at North Lincolnshire Council, and Kennedy Hannon, a product of adoption. Thank you both for coming in and welcome. First of all, hello, good to see you. Mick, if I may call you that, you're organising a special event to try to inform people about adoption.
Yeah. North Lincolnshire Adoption and Fostering Services are holding an adoption information evening on November the 5th. It's all on our website, so anybody can find all the details there with venue. Starts at 5:30 at the Learning Development Centre in Scunthorpe. We'd really like people to come along and just have a chat. If they've got any questions about adoption, that's the perfect time. They can come and chat to social workers about what it's like to be an adopter and what the process is.
And this is people who are interested in looking after a child. And
yeah.
And it's a big commitment, isn't it? I mean, this is for life, or not for life, but for to adulthood, as it were.
And beyond, because what we want people to know is that these are your children, and there are lots of unique children that need lots of different families from lots of different walks of life. So, you know, North Lincolnshire Adoption Fostering Service really celebrate everybody's difference and skills. So that's really vital for us, that people understand that we would be really interested to hearing from them. Just if they need to chat, maybe it's not the right time now, and maybe it's not them. Maybe it's not them, it might be somebody that they know, so they can give us a call or they can come to the information evening, and that'd be great to see them.
Kennedy, your experience of adoption has been extremely happy.
Yes, it's been quite a good tale mine, I guess you could say. Been adopted since the age of 5, and it's just been a fantastic experience being adopted.
Well, you're 18 now, so for the last 13 years you've been brought up as the child of a family. Is that right?
Yeah.
And there's you sort of immediately recognised your adopted mother as somebody who you weren't going to let her escape.
Basically what adopters are told when they're placed with a child is to make a family book, and I was given this family book a couple of days before meeting my adopted mum and dad, who are called mum and dad because they are.
Of course.
And I will never forget the story of my mum telling me when they came to see me for the very first time, when they were stood at the foster carer's door, and she was saying how both my mum and dad were scared and they didn't know what to expect. And all she remembers when the door was open is this little girl just running towards her, shouting, "Mummy, mummy, mummy," and jumping on her and just hugging her.
And you've been her daughter, and she's been your mummy ever since?
Always.
How many people in your jurisdiction, as it were, how many children are there looking for adopted parents?
There are many different children. We don't like to sort of give clear figures, but what we would want to say is that all the children are different and unique, and that's really important, that people actually think there are young children, there are sibling groups, older children, and many families might want, you know, their own unique needs met as potential parents. So we would say, you know, it's not just, people don't have to live in North Lincolnshire to come to North Lincolnshire. We'd be more than willing to do, you know, if somebody was living in different areas to give us a call, and we can talk them through the process, really.
I know that from friends of mine who have adopted and who have taken on children, who they love very much, of course, it's a long and bureaucratic process.
There is a process to follow. What we are there as social workers to do is help people through that process. You know, there is a very formal process, but it's about us informing people, giving people information. You know, we do have training. Kennedy is part of our training. She comes and talks to prospective adopters about what their journey will be, because she knows what it's like to be an adopted person, and we do think that as much information and much preparation we can give people, that sets them up really in their parenting role.
Well, Kennedy, to paraphrase the Russians, every happy family is happy differently. So, but is there any way you can make a generalisation and say what it is that makes the perfect adopted parent?
There is no words that you can actually say that being a perfect adopted parent, because all parents are the same exactly. You're just giving a child a happy home to start off with. And I mean, for my experience, my mum and dad have always been the most greatest people, and I look up to them, and it's really nice when people say to me that I'm a lot like my mum, and how... When you're
a little older, would you ever consider adoption yourself?
I've always said I wanted to adopt. My first child will be adopted.
Mick, you must just tell me very quickly the venue and the time.
It's at the Learning Development Centre on the 5th of November from 5:30 till 8:30. It is on North Lincolnshire's Adoption and Fostering website. There's also a lot of information there that you can have a look at for people.
Thank you both very
Thank
much
you very
for coming
much.
in. Join me after the break. Dan brings us a roundup of all the latest sports, and I'll be talking to Lawrence Brown about the Great British High Street, which is in Cleethorpes. Welcome back. You're watching Estuary News. Still to come tonight, Dan will be bringing us a roundup of the latest sporting news, and I'll be talking about the Great British High Street, which is in Cleethorpes, with Lawrence Brown. North Lincolnshire Council has created a parks strategy that sets out the vision and development plans for parks across the area from next year to 2026. It'll set out the council's aims, objectives and goals for parks across North Lincolnshire and help to direct the work of highways and neighbourhood services that maintain them. The strategy states that parks should be high quality, accessible and welcoming open spaces that are safe, well used and valued by the local community. North Lincolnshire's parks include the Green Flag Award-winning Kingsway Gardens in Scunthorpe. Friends groups will play a major role in the park strategy. One group is the Friends of Baysgarth Park in Barton, who are in the process of creating a 5-year plan to develop the park and bidding for funds to enhance the park in future years. Centre 4 in Wootton Street in Grimsby is where new or replacement bus passes will be issued from Monday. North East Lincolnshire Council awarded the contract to issue bus passes to the charity in May. Passes will no longer be issued from the warehouse in Freeman Street. The centres open from Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. A respected East Yorkshire lawyer was all shook up at an award ceremony recently when he was presented with a Lifetime Achievement Award and met Elvis. Julian Wilde, a partner at Rollett's law firm, was presented with his award at Friday's Bridlington and Yorkshire Coast Business Awards, hosted by the Hull and Humber Chamber of Commerce. He went on to meet Elvis, otherwise known as impersonator Steve Caprice, an award-winning tribute act based in East Yorkshire. Receiving his award, Julian said it's a complete surprise and a great honour to receive it. The evening raised more than £5,000 on the night for Hornsea Inshore Rescue. Seaview Street in Cleethorpes has been named today as one of the country's best high streets. It was shortlisted in the 3rd annual Great British High Street competition. The Cleethorpes High Street has been named as one of the top 3 entries in the Coastal Community category. And to tell me more about it now, I'm joined by Lawrence Brown. Lawrence, welcome.
Thank you, Hugh.
Your capacity here, your locus standi as it were, is so complicated you're going to have to explain it yourself.
Now, I'm the chair of the Visitor Economy Services and Retail Group for North East Lincolnshire.
Thank you very much. Who's holding this competition? Who's made this judgment?
It's the Department of Communities and Local Government, and they are hosting it, but it's supported by a number of corporate sponsors, which include the likes of British Land, who are a large corporate landlord, the Post Office, Holland and Barrett as retailers, Boots, and a number of others. Google and Twitter are also involved as well.
And who has come to this judgment that in Cleethorpes there is one of the finest high streets in the land?
Well, I think we all know that Seaview Street is one of the finest high streets in the land, but it's the Department for Communities and Local Government that has shortlisted Seaview Street onto the final list of 3, and that's how we've got to this stage. And there's now a 2-stage voting process and judging process to hopefully get Seaview Street to be deemed to be the best high street in the land.
Shortlist of 3. Who are the other 2?
Falmouth in Cornwall and Prestatyn in Wales.
It's really just fobbing off the Celts, isn't it? It's giving them a sop, isn't it? There's no doubt that Cleethorpes is superior to either of those 2 towns. And this is going to, the decision to which is going to be the best, which is going to win it, is up to the public vote.
Yes, it's in 2 stages. So part of it is voted for by officials at the DCLG and also at some of the principal sponsors. But 50% of the vote is down to members of the public. And it's ever such a simple process.
What do you do? Where do you go? How do you vote?
You quite simply go online, greatbritishhighstreet.co.uk, click on the link to vote and click to vote, and that is it.
And down with Falmouth and where was the other one? Prestatyn.
Prestatyn, yes.
Cleethorpes can be voted for that way. Well, excellent. Let's hope lots of people do that. It well deserves it. Seaview Street, what is it about Seaview Street that makes it an outstanding high street?
Well, I think lots of people who live locally know what's so good about Seaview Street. Boutique retailers, bistros, pubs, restaurants, everything you need, a stone's throw away from the beach, so if it's a cracking day you can go for a stroll along the beach or along the prom. The success of Seaview Street has actually grown such that it is not just limited to Seaview Street, but is now spilling out onto Alexandra Road, Kings Road, and also down onto Cambridge Street as well, helping to create the golden loop of Cleethorpes.
The golden loop, indeed, and it's fortunate to be in such a resort as Cleethorpes. Many people call it the jewel of the Humber Riviera, and that must boost the business available to it there. How is it different, though, from all sorts of other high streets that also happen to be in attractive seaside towns?
I think it's the uniqueness of Seaview Street that helps here. It's the fact that we've got an international jeweller located on Seaview Street. There's the bistro side of things in terms of recognised cafes, bars, restaurants, fashion outlets with their own chain, their own brands. Is just the opportunities and the capacity is endless.
The fact that there is business thriving on the street, I guess, much more seriously, it means that there is a thriving economy in Cleethorpes.
There is a thriving.
Is it a good indicator?
Very much so. Very much so. And the reason Seaview Street has got to where it is now is because of the hard work that's been put in by those that are already on Seaview Street. It's those retailers, it's those occupiers, it's those restaurateurs, those cafe owners that have put in the effort over the last 5 or 10 years or so to turn Seaview Street into the extremely attractive location that it is, that make people want to go down, that make people want to while away a couple of hours strolling along the street.
There is the boulevardiers of Cleethorpes and their familiar sight, and the flaneurs, but there is an element of the fact that Cleethorpes, like any resort town, and like any coastal town in this category, is going to be seasonal to some extent. You're not going to get an awful lot of business in the high street in November or February compared to June and July.
Au contraire, I disagree with you entirely.
We're being very French this evening, aren't we?
We are. I disagree. I mean, I think if you think of Seaview Street, if you're looking for that unique Christmas present, where else can you go? I mean, there's the internet, obviously, but if you want to see it, to hold it, to feel it, to touch it, go to one of the boutique shops on Seaview Street. Great opportunities there. And as I say, maybe taking in a mince pie and a glass of mulled wine in the run-up to Christmas whilst you're doing your shopping.
I'm glad you added that, because there was nothing else that was going to make me attracted to the idea of shopping. How much of a threat is the internet, very quickly?
I think the internet is part of the retailer's arsenal to attract customers, and that's why it's important that Google and Twitter are part of this process. The winning category get online support from Google for a year and get a trip down to Twitter to look at how to boost their social media
Very
presence.
quickly, that address to vote for Cleethorpes?
greatbritishhighstreet.co.uk.
Lawrence, thank you very much. Time now for Dan with the sport.
The top scorer in English football will once again be in action for Scunthorpe United tonight as they travel to Oldham Athletic. Josh Morris is expected to once again be in the Iron lineup after impressing since his summer move from Bradford, as United look to maintain their grip at the top of League One. Tonight's opponents are in the bottom 4 and have registered just 2 league wins from their 13 games so far. Meanwhile, off the field today, the club have announced that their head of commercial, Martin Ellis, has left the club. He's been replaced by David Clay, who spent 6 years at Glanford Park earlier in his career. Hull City defender Andy Robertson is going to miss the next 8 weeks of action following an injury he suffered at the weekend. It's been revealed in subsequent scans that he damaged his calf in the second half of City's 6-1 defeat to Bournemouth. North Ferriby United manager Steve Howsham says his players will be doing extra training in the build-up to their next game after their weekend defeat. Howsham described the 4-1 home loss to Macclesfield as embarrassing and says he'll be doing lots of work to make it right.
We come in training now on Tuesday and Thursday. We make it last for hours and hours and go through a lot of things. You know, they're not on a great deal of money, and we try, wherever I go, we try and make football enjoyable. And for the first time, me and Darren have sat there and questioned it, and we've sat there. First time I've probably kept the dressing room for as long as I have in my time, and just said, you know, we'll train on it for hours and hours just to get it right. But I'm not that sort of manager. You know, I want players to play with a smile on the face, but they've got to show back on the pitch, you know, and work hard. And for the majority of the season, they have. But today was a great chance, great opportunity, and they've thrown it away.
On to rugby, and Hull Kingston Rovers have announced 2 new signings for next season today. Bradford Bulls duo Danny Addy and Mitch Clark have both penned 1-year deals at the Lightstream Stadium to help the club achieve their aim of an immediate Super League return. Addy is a loose standoff while Clark plays at prop, and both have the option of a second year going into 2018. And that's all for the sport.
Thank you, Dan. That's it for tonight, I'm afraid. If you have a news story for us, then please visit our Facebook or Twitter pages. The details appear immediately below me. Visit news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 01472 31553 or write to us at Estuary TV, Nuns Corner, Laceby Road, Grimsby, North East Lincolnshire, DN34 5DQ. Until tomorrow, from all of us here, good evening.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Good evening and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. This evening, scattered showers becoming confined to the Pennines, but more persistent and locally heavy rain spreading from the west later in the evening, becoming windy at times, especially across the hills, minimum temperatures of 6 degrees. Tomorrow, early rain soon clearing, then sunny intervals, then the odd shower. This more widespread and locally heavy in the afternoon, feeling noticeably cooler in the brisk west or northwest wind, maximum temperatures of 12 degrees.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Good evening, you're watching Estuary News. I'm Hugh Riches. In the headlines tonight, pleas for a missing Hull man to get in touch, a chef's spectacular on the Yorkshire coast, and staying young at heart in East Yorkshire. And later in the programme, I'll be talking to David Badchi about a certain mystery, and before that, to the Reverend Mary Vickers, who'll be telling me about some of her plans for the future. But first, some news. NHS East Riding Clinical Commissioning Group have had plans approved to start a 12-week formal public consultation on proposed changes to urgent care services. The consultation period starts on the 25th of October and finishes on the 17th of January, when the public will have their say on the proposals by completing a survey or attending one of their public drop-in sessions. Under the plans, the 6 minor injury units across the East Riding will be replaced by 2 or 3 urgent care centres open 365 days a year. For the latest information on the urgent care consultation and the drop-in sessions, visit, get a pen ready, East Riding of Yorkshire CCG, all one word, .nhs.uk/urgent care, all one word. Plans to transform Hull's Albion Square have been approved by Hull City Council. The area identified for development encompasses the BHS store, the Edwin Davis building and the Albion Street car park. Developers hope it'll be a prime site for retail, housing and leisure. Councillor Martin Mancy says the decision demonstrates the renaissance of the city centre and this site's priority in the next few years. Concerns are growing for a Hull man who's gone missing. 60-year-old Eric Lee of Greenwood Avenue was last seen at his home at lunchtime on Saturday. He was wearing a burgundy or blue Ralph Lauren jumper, blue jeans, brown brogues or trainers and a dark blue winder waterproof. Anyone with information or Mr. Lee is asked to call Humberside Police on 101. An event to raise awareness of burglary was held in Scunthorpe today. Various agencies were on hand to show residents how they can protect their properties from burglary and encouraging them to sign up to Immobilise, the free national property database. Fred McNamara reports.
We're here to support the North Lincolnshire Council Safer Neighbourhoods event at the Hub on Westcliff Precinct. They're running a burglary awareness day for local residents, and obviously we, as one of the partners, Humberside Police, are here to support it. The idea is just to raise awareness really of individuals. 33% of our burglaries in Humberside Police are caused through insecurities, what we call sneak-ins through windows, doors, etc. that are left open, and also valuables left on display at windows. So it's to raise awareness really of individuals, ensure windows are shut, locked and rooms are not being used, front doors are locked, back doors are locked, etc. Just to try and avoid that sneak-in burglary, and also to raise awareness about shed burglaries as well. It's amazing how much stuff is stored in sheds and the value of the items being stored in sheds. And I'd ask you to step back, look at your shed, work out roughly how much is in there, and then look at the security on your shed. And often it's just a very cheap padlock. So again, try and upgrade some of the security on the sheds, even an alarm. Just something to try and stop people targeting your premises.
OnGo have worked in partnership with Safer Neighbourhoods to support the Hub, and we're here, and what we're hoping to do is do something with the public once a month on different topics. So this month is burglary awareness. The reason why we've looked at recent crime statistics, and this proves that Westcliff does have quite a high level of antisocial behaviour and crime. So it's just, we want to get that message out to the public, because when speaking to even local people, they're not aware of some of the issues. So if we can increase that publicity, then and the more people know what's going on, the better.
It's really so that they don't become victims to burglaries, and also assist us in fewer victims of burglaries as well. There's nothing more traumatic than somebody being in your house. It's an invasion of your privacy. You lose a lot of personal belongings, and often a lot of belongings have sentimental value. So if it's something that you as an individual can do to try and stop the burglaries, then obviously we've got the patrols out, we do the investigations, but try and stop yourself becoming a victim from the word go, really.
I think today, if we can bring the community together with all of our different agencies, and just for people down here working together, and that's what we hope to achieve.
I think these events give us a real opportunity to break down barriers with members of the public, engage with members of the public, show the public really that we are human as well, and give them the opportunity to ask us questions, raise concerns and pass on information if they want to as well. So it's a real good engagement event where you've got all the different public authorities down here, you've got the police, you've got the council, you've got OnGo Homes, and as I say, the council are really supporting this event with their Safer Neighbourhoods unit.
Exercise is the key to staying young at heart, according to a Beverley woman who's been attending her local leisure centre for over a decade. 80-year-old Mary Lang is a firm believer in gentle exercise being the best way to remain fit and active, and she has no plans to stop as yet, as Luke Adams discovers.
Getting her gym kit ready is a routine Mary has got down to a fine art over the past 10 years. She's a regular at East Riding Leisure down Flemingate in Beverley and is now calling on others to share her passion for sport as she encourages more people to get fit.
If you don't use it, you lose it. And it is very, very good. And all the time I've been in sport, I've always enjoyed it. And you work to your own ability. And it's very good. I say I've enjoyed it. You can go on the treadmill, you can go on the cycle, which I used to do, you know, and I'm reverting to that now because I can do the leg exercise, but of course nothing with my shoulders and that. And you can be watching television, so it's much better for people, for anyone to go, and there's people around you.
Tell me about the operation on your shoulder.
I've had a decompression operation, and the maximum time it will take to be 100% can be 9 months. And I was really agog at this, but other medical people have said it other than my surgeon. And actually they've shaved some of my shoulder blade and they've made a space because the bones were rubbing.
Mary, I guess that it's not just about keeping fit, it's also about keeping socially active as well, isn't it?
I'd go regularly every week unless I was on holiday or ill. Very good. But then as I've got my shoulder problem, I stopped going last year. And I met some very nice friends, you know, there. And so I'm going to the gym now to do what I can do because it's part of my life and I enjoy it so much, you know. But I've never been one because people can think, oh, when you're on the treadmill and I'm going slowly, it doesn't matter what standard you are at anything. Because, I mean, there's these people who go and they're running on them, you know, really, and sweating. Well, I've never, ever done that. I'm not disciplined to do that, but it's not necessary. I go to enjoy it. And this is what people could do. And I think older people, they ought to go and just see what it's like.
Now I'm joined now by the Reverend Mary Vickers, whose role as the Urban and Industrial Chaplain in North East Lincolnshire is about to come to an end following a cut in funding. Mary, sorry to hear that, slightly bad news, but before we go into why that role is coming to an end, what was it? What is an Urban and Industrial Chaplain?
A lot of my time, it's like being a vicar outside of the church, so a lot of my time I spend visiting factories and different workplaces, ranging from fish factories like Young Seafood through to Humberside Airport, the police, the fire service, Freshney Place, E-Factor and the courts. So I'm there during normal working hours, visiting people at their workplace, available to them outside working hours if they wish to talk privately or explore something at greater depth. But also go to lots of networking things. I do some work with the council on chaplaincy as well and take my part in society around here.
Well, so as it were, it was not so much a matter of, if I can mix my metaphors, of people who wouldn't come to the church. Yep. You go, if this is where the mixed metaphor comes in, if the mountain had to go to Muhammad, as it were.
Yes, it's the church going out to the people rather than expecting the people to come into the church at a set time of day or whatever.
What was the organisation you were working for?
I'm employed currently, but for not much longer, by Lincolnshire Chaplaincy Services, which is an ecumenical charity, so covering all the Christian denominations. And they cover Greater Lincolnshire. So there's me here in North East Lincolnshire, a colleague in North, somebody in Lincoln, somebody in South East Lincolnshire, an agricultural chaplain who covers the whole county, and a couple of other chaplains and admin support. So.
Your reason that your role is coming to an end is a lack of funding.
Yeah, we had our core funding comes from the Diocese of Lincoln at the moment, and that's been withdrawn for all sorts of reasons, I think. And there are other bits of funding. So 2 of my colleagues at the moment aren't yet being made redundant because their funding lasts until July. It's ring-fenced for them. but the rest of us are being made redundant on the 31st of January.
We should emphasise here that Diocese of Lincoln is Church of England. You're a Church of England priest.
Yes.
A bit of shooting yourself in the foot there.
It feels probably a bit more weird for those of us who are Church of England priests because we're licensed by the Bishop to do the work we do. But we are employed by Lincolnshire Chaplaincy Services, which, as many small charities, is reliant on funds, and they're hard to come by.
Now, there's a shortage of priests, so the sort of demand outweighs supply, as it were, so you needn't worry on that sense, but you prefer the work that you're doing getting out there rather than staying in a church.
Yes, I much prefer... I miss this work flowing out of a church, but the danger is if you're a parish priest, there's always so many demands on the church plant, the church building, the church congregation, whereas I'm released, I see it as a privilege, but I'm released to be out there with people, because in today's 24-hour society, people can't get to church.
Mary, excellent missionary work, I suppose. Thank you very much for coming in here. Join me after the break when Dan brings us a roundup of all the latest sporting action, the mystery of Bryony Lodge with author David Batchy, and Luke enjoys a chef's spectacular on the east coast of Yorkshire. Welcome back. You're watching Estuary News. Still to come tonight, Dan brings us a roundup of all the latest sports news, and I'll be talking to David Batchy about the mystery of Bryony Lodge. Chefs from across the region have come together for a one night only to nurture stars of the future. 6 Michelin-starred chefs, all alumni of Yorkshire Coast College, cooked up a masterclass for current students to be served to key figures in the local area. Luke Adams reserved a table and joined the celebrations.
While the guys are still setting up behind me, I've had a chance to have a look at the order of proceedings for tonight's spectacular event. Now, following the introduction from Jill Alton, the Chief Executive of the Grimsby Institute Group, comes the first course of the evening, the canapés and arrival drinks, courtesy of Anthony Gascoigne, lecturer of the North Hertfordshire College, and I had a chance to speak to him earlier today. Anthony, good afternoon. Lovely to see you.
Good afternoon.
How does it feel to be back at your former training ground, as it were, today?
It's a little bit surreal. It's actually quite emotional coming. I haven't been back to Scarborough for 22 years in the college. So seeing the lecturers who are still here is actually, it's quite surreal, but very, very rewarding to be back.
And are you looking forward to this evening's event?
Yeah, it should be good. I think we're in charge of the canapés, and we're on top of the game. We're ready for it. Few last-minute things to do, so I'm comfortable with what we've got to do. I'm looking forward to seeing what the other chefs, how they bring everything together, and I'm looking forward to seeing my students work with the other chefs as well. So it's going to be very exciting.
I've spoken to some of the chefs who've been heavily involved in the preparations this morning. It's now time for me to head down to the spa to see all their hard work and preparation finally come to fruition, and to meet some of the others involved in the celebrations. Paul.
Hello.
So I saw you earlier today.
Yep.
Preparation for this evening, and here's the finished article.
Fantastic.
Your gin and tonic cured salmon.
Yeah. So essentially, we're using the same technique that we use for gravlax in Scandinavia, but we've taken the flavours of gin and tonic instead this time. So we've cured the salmon for 36 hours.
Okay.
All the botanicals, all the the flavours of gin, including gin itself. And once it's been compressed and marinated, we've taken it off the skin, we've diced it up, we've mixed it with flavours then that kind of work well with gin and tonic and also Scandinavian sort of flavours of gravlax. So we've got a treacle or molasses yoghurt, we've got a dill emulsion, we've got compressed cucumber, we've got pickled fennel, and we've got a gin and pickled lemon tonic gel. Yeah, it's a fresh dish, and it should be almost acting like a palate cleanser after James's starter. So it almost introduces you then into, obviously, the next course would be Andrew's course. So it's quite a palate cleanser, fresh, light, and I think with the weather outside at the moment, it's quite nice to bring a bit of sun inside.
Absolutely. Am I okay to tuck in and try this?
Of course you can.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Jill, good evening. Lovely to see you as always. One of my favourite faces at the Grimsby Institute.
Oh, thank you.
Why are we here this evening?
We're here to celebrate the outstanding success of Yorkshire Coast College. They have more Michelin star chefs than any other college in the country, and 5 of them tonight have decided to come back, have offered to come back and present their signature dishes for to showcase what Yorkshire Coast College has done for them and to help future students. It's absolutely been a brilliant night. I am so proud of what they've done.
You can see behind me that the celebrations are continuing. I think they'll be continuing well into the night. One thing I particularly enjoyed about this event is how well the chefs and the students have worked together to put on this spectacular event. Everyone's enjoyed all the exquisite food. I know I certainly have, and we hope that this will become a key event in the calendar next year. Luke Adams, Estuary TV News.
Now, The Mystery of Bryony Lodge is the first novel to be published by from David Batchy, and it is what I believe in literary circles is known as a mashup between Sherlock Holmes and Three Men in a Boat, Arthur Conan Doyle and Jerome K. Jerome. And it's a beautifully produced book, David, for a start. You better just explain quite what is going on.
Yes. Yes, as the cover suggests, there's a shadowy presence there of Sherlock Holmes himself. And this is a mashup. This is a sort of mixture of the adventures of the 3 men from Three Men on the Boat. 3, I suppose you'd call them slackers these days. These are men who are rather hapless and useless people.
I regard them as my heroes. They're models for my life.
They're certainly that as well, but they're also a bit hopeless when it comes to dealing with a gang of international criminals, which is what they have to do. What happens is they find themselves living in 221B Baker Street, and by a farcical mix-up, a beautiful young schoolmistress who is in deadly danger is shown to their rooms rather than to the rooms she really needs to go to, Holmes and Watson's, and the complications pile on from that point.
I've read it. It's extremely funny. I think it's particularly funny. I'm a great admirer of Three Men in a Boat and of Sherlock Holmes, and I think maybe everybody's familiar with Sherlock Holmes. Better just remind us perhaps what Three Men in a Boat is about.
Yes,
what those
I think
are.
That's quite true. Three Men in a Boat is probably better known these days in Russia and in India than it is in this country, because it's part of English language teaching in Russia. But it's a story. It started out. What Jerome wanted to do was write a fairly serious story of the history of the River Thames, enlivened with comic interludes. But eventually, as he says, the comic interludes took over and the history rather went into the background. And it is the story of the 3 men, that is Jerome himself, he was represented by the single letter J, his friends William Samuel Harris, based on a real person, Carl Henschel, and also George Wingrave, again a real person, a bank manager he became in the end. And it's the story of their mishaps, I think, on the Thames.
Three Men in a Boat is one of the great, I'm surprised it's better known in India and Russia. It's one of the great masterpieces of British, hilarious, very witty, very funny writing. And I recommend anybody to read it, but I also recommend this one, because this is also very funny and made me laugh out loud when I was reading it. And the reason is that you sort of tapped into the voice so accurately, the voice as well as the spirit. I take it you're a Jerome K. Jerome lover by the description.
Well, I am, and in fact, I was born in the same town that he was born in, Walsall in the West Midlands, or Staffordshire as it would have been in his day, and 100 years almost to the day later. So I feel a very strong connection with Jerome as a sort of local literary hero of mine.
The dog that they take with them on the river cruise is called Montmorency.
Yeah.
I must just read out the first sentence. The Sherlock Holmes lovers will recognise it, but Montmorency is from 3 Men in a Boat. To Montmorency, she is always the woman. Thank you, David, so much. I hope this is a great success. It deserves to be. It's a brilliant book. Thank you very much.
You.
Now here's Dan with all the sports news.
Scunthorpe United lost their first game in 10 last night, going down 2-0 at Oldham Athletic. The Iron have maintained their 3-point cushion at the top of League One, however, after Bradford City failed to beat Southend. Next up, they'll take on Chesterfield on Saturday, and you'll be able to hear from the Iron boss Graham Alexander on tomorrow's show. There's positive news at Hull City today as they confirm that goalkeeper Alan McGregor is available for a return to action. The Scottish international missed all of pre-season with a back injury, but is now being put forward for selection for the club's under-23 side. Meanwhile, striker Diamersi Mbakani has received less good news today. He's likely to be out of action until the next international break with a Grade 2 hamstring strain. And finally for now, Hull FC's outgoing Leon Price has hailed the club and its supporters. He's rejoining his hometown club, Bradford Bulls, for 2017, but says they're a great set of lads who the fans are rightly proud of. And that's all for the sport.
Thanks, Dan. Should just add that The Mystery of Bryony Lodge by David Batch is published by Barbican Press, available through Amazon and Waterstones bookshops. That's it for tonight. If you have a news story, then please visit our Facebook or Twitter pages. Details below. Email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 01472 31553. I'm afraid that's all we have time for tonight. Until tomorrow, good evening.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Tonight it's going to rain, wind feeling quite cool. Tomorrow it's going to rain some more. Easterly winds will be strong near coasts and gusty, especially near showers. Minimums of 8, maximums of 12.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Good evening, you're watching Estuary News. I'm Hugh Richards. In the headlines tonight, the UK's longest glass tidal defence structure is completed in East Yorkshire, strike action is called off in Hull, and a pint-sized pub guide in Beverley. And later in the programme, I'll be talking to Mick Enright about beer on the beach. Lincolnshire County Council this afternoon voted against having a mayor for the county, meaning a devolution deal for Lincolnshire is now unlikely, as all 10 local authorities must agree for the plans to proceed. This comes despite members of North East Lincolnshire Council yesterday approving proposals to form a Greater Lincolnshire Combined Authority with an elected mayor. NELC councillors voted by 30 to 5 to support the proposal that responsibilities and funding be devolved to a new Greater Lincolnshire Authority. The new authority would have taken many local decisions now made by district or unitary authorities or by central government. Under the deal, an additional £450 million over the next 30 years might have provided investment in housing and infrastructure. The former retail manager of the Deep in Hull has been jailed for 27 months after stealing £89,000. Hull Crown Court heard how Jason Metcalf, 43, stole money from 2 penny press souvenir machines and put fake refunds through the tills of the gift shop to fund his gambling habit. His offences came to light after an internal investigation last March, when anomalies with the machines and a large number of refunds were highlighted. At a previous hearing in September, Metcalf admitted 3 counts of theft, 7 counts of fraud and 3 counts of converting criminal property, with offences dating back to 2009. Work to create the UK's longest glass tidal defence structure has been completed in Paul in East Yorkshire. The glass barrier is part of a larger £30 million 5-year project which will provide flood protection for more than 14,000 properties in Hull and the East Riding. The new glass wall has been fixed to the existing tidal defence wall, which was built in the 1980s and runs from Paul Shipyard to the former Coast Guard House in Townend Road. It's part of the £3.5 million phase of the 2-phase Hull and Holderness flood alleviation scheme. The scheme is being delivered by East Riding Council, working closely with Hull City Council and the Environment Agency. Beverley has around 30 pubs, taverns, inns, grog shops and boozers. A new guide explains their history. Luke Adams likes a pub crawl.
I'm in Beverley this morning, where a new pint-sized guide exploring the town's intriguing, vibrant pub scene has been launched. It will help put the town firmly on the map. The town is host to around 30 pubs, including several which are located around Beverley's Saturday Market. That's where I met Councillor Jane Everson, portfolio holder for economic investment and tourism on East Riding Council.
The actual idea was born through Enterprise Inns approaching VHA, Visit Hull in East Yorkshire, and that's the council's tourism arm for looking after the tourism business in this area, with the idea of looking into the different pubs in Beverley, which is an absolutely fantastic idea. Not one we'd thought of before, I must admit, but one we were certainly very interested in. There have always been public houses in Beverley. Beverley, of course, as we all know, is a wonderful historic market town.
Mark McMullen is the landlord of the Dog and Duck down Ladygate, who've made it onto the map. His family are part of the history of the town's pub trade.
My pub is in its 3rd generation. My grandmother first, then my father, then me. It's been in the family now for 43 years. We moved here from Hull. We've tried to keep it traditional, sell all the real ales and food. Yeah, and it's sort of a bit of a profession of ours, really. It's carried on in the family. My children work for me now part-time when they're not at college or university. So, yes, it's my life, really.
The pub trade is often thought of as a dying industry, but Mark isn't so sure.
I don't like to think it is, no, I think it's on the up a little bit at the moment. I think the culture of the pub's changed. I think the drinking culture's not so hard. I think it's drink and food now, but we still have a lot of regulars, and we still have a lot of sports teams and pub sports teams.
And you can find this very handy little guide in the Tourist Information Centre in Beverley. Planned strike action by staff at Hull College was called off today after an agreement was reached between the college and the University and College Union. UCU members were to walk out in a dispute over redundancies affecting 142 staff after planned action last week was postponed for further negotiations. Following those talks, the college has confirmed that it has no long-term plans to make any UCU members compulsorily redundant. It'll now look at redeploying staff affected by the college's restructure. UCU regional official Julie Kelly said the union is pleased that it's been able to negotiate a resolution which avoids the need for industrial action. Two of the biggest names in the wrestling world are about to tussle it out in the ring. Mickie James, one of the greatest women's wrestlers in history, and Nick Magnum Aldis, who famously became the first Brit to win the TNA World Championship, will both be in Grimsby next week. We caught up with them just recently.
I've been wrestling for a long time now, but most people would know me from WWE. I'm a 9-time women's champion from WWE and TNA, and yeah, it's been a pretty long and amazing road.
And you're returning to a WWE ring very soon.
I am.
Okay.
So I'm getting ready to return to the WWE after my long departure, 6 years it's been, to face the NXT Women's Champion, Asuka. So I'm very excited about that in Toronto.
But before that,
we're coming here.
Yes.
To Grimsby.
Very excited about it.
I am.
I used to wrestle here when I first broke into the business for All-Star Wrestling, and I always just felt like this venue was just so perfect for wrestling. It just has the way it's laid out, the acoustics. It's a beautifully maintained venue, and it's a perfect size, and the atmosphere is always great. And so when we looked at places to run some live events, to bring some bigger names to a UK audience, this was one of the first ones on the list, and we had a great time last year, and we hope for the same this year.
I think that the fact that the people can meet these stars, and shake their hand and to have pictures taken, it's very rare that you get an opportunity to do that, and then to follow that with an amazing show, to be able to see these people perform in their backyard, pretty much. So it's pretty exciting because it's fun for the whole family to be able to come out. I mean, it's a family event, and we put on the best show that we absolutely can.
Yeah, this is, I think, arguably the best lineup that Grimsby Wrestling event has ever had, because we've got Mickie, myself, a former TNA champion. We've got Carlito, who's a big WWE star, and we've got Bull Dempsey, who was a big NXT star. So between, it's very rare that a show of, with that many stars would make it to a place like this. So it's really, and we deliberately go out of our way to try and do that. And the rest of the lineup is also some of the best talent from around the world. So it's, we design the cards ourselves. So we try and give people a little bit of everything, with high flying stuff. We've got some big monsters. We've got heavyweights. We've got the women. We've got, stars from TV. A whole cast of different sort of colorful characters. It's just great for everyone.
Plus the stars from the UK that could be the stars of tomorrow.
Yes, I mean, last year we had an event here, and since that event, 2 of the wrestlers that were on this show have since gone on to sign with the WWE. So clearly, we pride ourselves on bringing the best quality talent we can.
Would you say it's quite an intimate show then?
I would say so. I mean, because we do a special VIP meet and greet prior to the show. And then we also, during intermission, there's we'll have a lot of the stars come out to take pictures and do autographs. We've even done pictures inside the ring, which is awesome. I think me, as I grew up a massive wrestling fan, so I think that was something that would have never happened for me. And so now, I can just envision being that little kid to be able to get in the ring and take a picture with one of their favorite stars. That's unheard of. So it's pretty exciting.
We try to offer things at this show that with these stars that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do at an arena. Some of the guys like Carlito and Mickie especially, and even me from performing at Wembley and places like that. A lot of fans who have seen us live before have probably only seen us at an arena, so it's not as easy to. You're not as accessible. You can't meet them as easily. You can, it's normally a select few who get it, maybe a competition prize or something like that. But with a show of this size, we're still able to give them the big lights. The production values here are fantastic, so they still get the same production values that they would get at a big arena show, and they still get the same quality of show, but they get the ability to have a bit more of an interactive experience with the talent, because it's a smaller venue. We've got more time to be able to give everybody a great, unique experience.
I think they should come because it's going to be an amazing show, and it's a great show for the whole family. So, it's half term, so if you're looking for something to do and to bring the kids to, and to make a night that they'll never forget, it's definitely one that they should definitely consider.
one of the things that we pride ourselves on is that often we have people come to our events who have come because maybe their kids were fans or because a friend of theirs was a fan, and by the end of the show they've gone, you know what, I'm not a wrestling fan, but this show was so great, it was so fun, it was so interactive, it was so entertaining, it was fast moving, and you know, it's just fun, and we pride ourselves on that. So anyone who's just looking for a good night out on a Friday night, that this is the best place to be in Grimsby for sure.
Join me after the break. Dan will bring us the roundup of the latest sports news, and I'll be talking about drinks in Cleethorpes with my guest, Mick Enright. Welcome back. You're watching SG News. Still to come tonight, Dan brings us a roundup of the latest sporting action and more beer in Cleethorpes with my guest, Mick Enright. Staff at the new East Riding Leisure Centre in Bridlington are celebrating a summer of success. The popularity of the new centre has exceeded expectations with its 100,000th swim last week. The centre opened its doors in May and 3,100 members have now signed up, including 2,100 new starters. Leader of East Riding Council, Councillor Stephen Parnaby, said the centre has clearly started a new era of health and fitness, and he says no doubt it will continue to go from strength to strength. The centre has a 25-metre swimming pool, a splash zone with 2 interactive water slides and water play features, and a jacuzzi and health suite. If you're looking for something to keep the kids entertained, Grimsby's Fishing Heritage Centre may have the answer. They're holding lantern building workshops for children aged 5 and over, where they can make a lantern ready for the big Christmas event and family lantern parade as part of the Christmas lights switch on the 24th of November. 24th of November is not Christmas. Supervised sessions will run throughout the half-term and cost £2 per child. For more information and to book a place, call 01472 323 345. Diabetes patients at Grimsby Hospital are sitting comfortably after a £500 donation. Vic Tolson of the Lord Heneage Freemasons in the town presented a cheque to staff in the Diabetes Centre earlier this year and recently visited to see how the funds have been spent. They've bought an upgrade of furniture in the education room, which is used by healthcare professionals, patients and their families. Diabetes nurse specialist Caroline Andrews said the donation has enabled the purchase of 40 new chairs and that the room is now a much pleasanter, lighter and brighter environment. Now, there'll be a lot of cheers this weekend in Cleethorpes for the second Cleethorpes Beer Festival, and this year's theme is the Oktoberfest. Everything from ales to cider and gin to cocktails will be available, and one of the organisers, Mick Enright, joins me now. Mick, welcome, thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much for inviting you.
Now, I love a beer festival. I've never been to the Oktoberfest in Munich, which confusingly happens in September.
Yeah, it does.
Have you ever visited it?
I've been, yeah. It's manic, crazy. I mean, it's really a place that the atmosphere is electric. But why it's in September, I don't know. Yeah, I can't find that out.
I'm sure there's something in the midst of time. But how is the Cleethorpes Festival? How is that emulating or following the Oktoberfest?
Well, we're trying to, obviously, we're more health and safety conscious, unfortunately, in this country. The glass stuff and all this kind of lot and everything. But what we're trying to do is trying to level it out so people can come and enjoy a full day of how they want to enjoy it. We're talking about close on 100 different types of drinks. There's going to be, obviously, from gin, there's going to be cocktails, and you'll be an expert on cocktails, you know that.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
I brought all the things that's, the cocktails, there's a full cocktail list.
Some of them look absolutely delicious.
And there's obviously the gin list, just to start off with.
I know, who'd have thought there were so many different kinds of gin?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how many types of gin there are. So we're there, and the other thing is we're looking to bring in local people, bring in the community to the local people. And one of the things that I brought this particularly for you.
Thank you, yes. Much appreciated.
Axome, Mariners Promotion Ale. Up the Mariners, come on to town.
Fantastic. Well, it's worth celebrating, and it's worth celebrating with a drink.
A guy in the message in the bottle who's part of the festival on Saturday, he put this together. It's his idea, and I think it's a magnificent idea. So all you town supporters out there, get yourself here on Saturday. When the game's over and you've won 2 or 3-0, get down to there.
Yeah, give me my beer.
There's your beer.
Thank you very much, Mick. I have that when the weather's on. Better tell us where and when this is happening. Where's the venue?
The Beachcomber, 12 o'clock till late. Also, there'll be food outlets. There'll be certain foods that will be available for people to have.
Good idea to have something to soak up.
Oh, we need to get a bite to eat down as you, don't we? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
There's also going to be a fruity wine.
Right.
Yeah, there's going to be a different fruity wine people. There's different kind of thing. It's things for people to try. It's all about, I'll try that. And you'll get a taste.
You can have little samples
yeah,
as well.
you get
You
a
don't have
taste.
to knock back
Anybody
a pint
gets a
every
problem
time.
about not getting a taste, they contact me, I'll be there.
Okay.
And I'll be over there and say, come on,
You said more than 100 types of drink, and it's good. I think it's cider and beer is the main offering at the festival.
Cider, beer, lager. We've got 7 different world lagers. So the lagers are there, the beer's there, and obviously the cider's there.
That's the problem with the Oktoberfest in Germany, presumably, is it is mostly lager.
It is.
And they don't have what we English people would call proper beer. But we do have lots of proper beer, I take it, and from all over the country?
Yeah, we do. I mean, the more little breweries you can get involved. I mean, Bateman's got a large amount of stock in terms of what they produce and the kind of thing. So there is this difference between, as you quite identified, the lager and the beer in the lager. We've got the lager, we've got the beer, but when you're in the German festivals, it's all lager. You don't get a mix.
No,
and people go, oh, let's have October festival, but
But you want some proper beer. Anyway, it's not just beer. There's plenty of cider as well.
Absolutely.
You're making a point of having all these different varieties and flavours of gin, all
Yeah.
these cocktails. Thank you very much for my beer. Axo Brewing, support the small brewers. They're the ones that are interesting. And I'm sorry to rush you, Mick, just very quickly, place and time again.
Place and time is a Beachcomber, 12 o'clock till late on Saturday, 22nd of October. Be
your-
there or be square.
Your very good health, Mick. Thank
And
you very
thank
much.
you.
Here's the Sports Now with Dan.
Scunthorpe United manager Graham Alexander says he's unsure of the availability of a couple of his players ahead of Saturday's trip to Chesterfield. He says Norwich City loanee Harry Toffolo hasn't trained yet after missing Tuesday night's defeat at Oldham. He was replaced in the side by Connor Townsend. Goalkeeper Luke Daniels, however, has trained lightly today with coach Paul Musselwhite, but Alexander will judge them over the next 24 hours.
Luke's been out there doing a light session away from the main group, just with Muzzy doing a bit of goalkeeping stuff. So we'll still assess him tomorrow. Just because he's out on the grass doesn't mean he's out of the woods. So we just need to make sure he's fully recovered before him being available for selection again. And Toffs, he's going to be another couple of weeks, I feel. And then, obviously Willow has trained again today, which is good, and we're still waiting on Jordan.
Grimsby Town's Sean McAllister has suffered a setback in his return from a hamstring injury. The summer signing has missed the start of the season and had returned for the reserves last week, but Hurst admitted today that his comeback to first-team action isn't close yet. The town boss also updated us on the fitness of another of his squad.
Ashley Chambers had the stitches out. He's starting to have a slow jog around, but clearly the weekend will be too soon for him. And Sean McAllister, unfortunately, has felt his groin again. So while he hasn't sort of been back in real contention, that certainly, puts that one to bed. Whereas if he'd have got a full week in training and not felt anything, he'd have been a step closer to the squad. And other than that, we've got a player that's ill that will remain unnamed.
Meanwhile, today the club have confirmed that former manager Neil Woods will return to the club. He'll take on the role of youth academy manager when he leaves his role at Walsall next month. According to reports, Hull FC owner and former chairman of Hull City, Adam Pearson, is part of a consortium attempting to buy the Tigers. He's reportedly part of a group hailing from China and Hong Kong that have bid £130 million to the company that currently own the club, Alam House. Elsewhere today, Hull FC's Scott Taylor has been named in Wayne Bennett's side for England. He's in the 19-man squad selected to take on France on Saturday. And a bit of local non-league football news. Former North Ferriby United and Hull City defender Nathan Peat is to become co-manager of Brigg Town. He'll be joining Anthony Bosley on the touchline at the Hawthorns. And finally for now, Hull boxer Tommy Coyle will fight at Wembley Arena in his next fight. He's been announced on the November the 26th card, where he'll face former WBC International and Commonwealth champion Wayne Hibbert. And that's all for the sport.
Thanks very much, Dan, and thanks to Mick. I wish more interviewees would come in here and bring me drink. It's extremely welcome precedent to set. And enjoy the beer festival on Saturday at the Beachcombers in Cleethorpes. If you've a news story for us, then please visit our Facebook or Twitter pages, email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 01472315553. And you can put pen to paper right to us at Estuary TV, Nuns Corner, Laceby Road, Grimsby, North East Lincolnshire, DN345BQ. Details below me. Until tomorrow, from everybody here on the team at Estuary News, good evening.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Tonight it's going to rain, wind feeling quite cool. Tomorrow it's going to rain some more. Easterly winds will be strong near coasts and gusty, especially near showers. Minimums of 8, maximums of 12.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.